MSNBC has canceled Joy Reid's 7 o'clock show, The Readout.
No!
As part of a major overhaul by the network's new regime. Reid, an unabashed liberal, mainstay, in fact, you could argue, and an emphatic Trump critic, will be replaced by a new show hosted by former Obama staffer and Bernie Sanders backer Simone Sanders Townsend, also former RNC chair Michael Steele, and Alicia Menendez, the daughter of disgraced New Jersey Senator Bob Menendez.
In Project 2025, folks like Miller, Vance, and Trump want to nationalize their long-term goal of putting a stop to what they call anti-white racism.
In America, there's a thing about both white vigilantism and white tears, particularly male white tears. Really white tears in general, because that's what Karens are, right? They Karen out, and then as soon as they get caught, it's like, Green Waterworks.
And when people had the double hashtags around their names because they were Jewish, and right-wingers were saying, get in the oven anytime you made any benign comment on Twitter. They attacked women. The misogyny was crazy on Twitter for a while. Elon Musk, I guess he misses the old South Africa in the 80s. He wants that back. Okay, let's face it. The world is paying attention because this is happening in Europe. If this was happening anywhere else, would we see the same outpouring of support and compassion? But we don't need to ask ourselves if the international response would be the same if Russia unleashed their horror on a country that wasn't white and largely Christian. If you've been watching the news for the past few days or on Twitter or TikTok, you're probably familiar with the name Gabby Petito. Why not the same media attention when people of color go missing? Well, the answer actually has a name. Missing white woman syndrome, to describe the media and public fascination with missing white women like Lacey Peterson or Natalie Holloway, while ignoring cases involving missing people of color. That the coronavirus, or that the virus, was a very
low
was not importance to many of the voters there. It was education, right, which is code for white parents don't like the idea of teaching about race.
That white men had a particular kind of freedom and a particular kind of citizenship that only they have. That gives, from the slave catchers on, the right to inflict violence in the name of protecting property. That's like the foundational creation of the United States.
You gotta love the Tim Scott standing there to provide the patina of diversity over that round of words, that basket full of words. If somehow they manage to stumble into the Supreme Court, do any of you guys trust Uncle Clarence and Amy Coney Barrett and those guys to actually follow the letter of the law? No. And who are these special citizens? Why, they're white so-called Christian conservatives who feel like this country was built by them for them. And so everyone but them needs to suck it up and let them have their way, or else.
Kyle Rittenhouse trial. It reminded a lot of people of something, I just can't remember what it was. Oh, the Brett Kavanaugh hearings, in which Brett Kavanaugh, who had been accused by a high school friend of committing sexual abuse of her, cried his way through the hearings to make him a permanent member and Associate Justice of the United States Supreme Court. And his tears turned out to be more powerful than the tears of Christine Blasey Ford, which were the tears of an alleged victim. But in America, there's a thing about both white vigilantism and white tears, particularly male white tears. Really white tears in general. White men can get away with that too. And it has the same effect, even as the right tries to politicize the idea that masculinity is being robbed from American men by multiculturalism and wokeism. They still want to be able to have their tears.
They can drive out the brown people and the black and Asian people, or just sink them into the same apartheid they've created in Texas. And they will control enough electoral votes if they can.
They want white supremacy by ventriloquist effect. There is a black mouth moving, but a white idea through the running on the runway of the tongue of a figure who justifies and legitimates the white supremacist practices.
Your thoughts, Byron Donalds, who walked out after Dixie was played in New York and has no shame there. They say he's going to be the governor of Florida now.
Yeah, every community has what I call their chickens for Colonel Sanders. Muslims had their halal chickens. The black community has their chickens. Byron Donalds is a grown-ass black man who referred to Donald Trump as his daddy. And what I want to tell the Byron Donalds, and every community's got a Donald, I got a Kash Patel. We got a Nimrata, you know, we got the Haley. We all got them, all right? What I want to say is this. They'll never love you. They'll never love you. No matter what you do, they'll never love you. You can never wipe out that brown or black skin.
But, you know, I feel like the important sort of data point, and you know, Steve talks about it a lot. He's going to probably talk about it a little more tonight, is that these are white Christians. That this is a state that is overrepresented by white Christians that are going to participate in these caucuses, especially tonight. Earlier today, reached out to Robbie Jones, from the Public Religion Research Institute, knowing that we were going to talk about Iowa. And this is a hyper-evangelical white state. And he said the following to me. Iowa is about 61% white Christian. The country as a whole is approximately 41% white Christian. And in Iowa, we're talking about evangelical white Christians. And he said the following. Because I asked him, what do they get out of supporting Donald Trump? Because he keeps losing, he keeps delivering losses and losses and losses. And he said the following. They see themselves as the rightful inheritors of this country, and Trump has promised to give it back to them. All the things that we think about electability, about, you know, what are people gaming out, or none of that matters when you believe that God has given you this country, that it is yours, and that everyone who is not a white conservative Christian is a fraudulent American, is a less real American. Then you don't care about electability. You care about what God has given. But Republican voters don't vote that way. They don't vote based on economics or based on the benefits they're getting economically from the president. They're increasingly, from the Tea Party on, they're voting on race. They're voting on this idea of an invasion of brown people over the border. The idea that they can't get whatever job they want. A black person got it, therefore drive all the blacks out of the colleges, get rid of DEI. That is what they're voting on. They're just voting specifically on racial animus. At this stage, it isn't about economics.
No.
Returning white Christian men, but also white men and white adjacent men, you know, black men, brown men who are like white adjacent in terms of trying to also be in that dominant position in society. And then you have women who are willing to go along with that, right? There are a certain number of women who are also willing, the trad wife sort of thing. And so what you've seen on this.
No, absolutely. I'm sure the doctors are exhausted. And, you know, Jason, there is a term called necropolitics, which is essentially the politics of who gets to live and who gets to die. And these states, what they have in common is that they have structures which say that black and brown lives matter less. And so all that matters is that the black and brown people get their behinds into the factory and make me my steaks, make me my stuff, get there and do my nails, work, get back to work now and do the things that I, the comfortable, affluent person, need. Isn't that what we're seeing? I mean, that's what it feels like to me. Necropolitics in states like Texas.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, this really was an historic, flawlessly run campaign. Queen Latifah never endorses anyone. She came out and endorsed. You know, I mean, she had every prominent celebrity voice. She had the Taylor Swift, she had the Swifties, she had the Beehive. Like, you could not have run a better campaign in that short period of time. And I think that's still true.
The people I ever hear use the word inflation are journalists and economists, right? So that is not part of the normal lexicon of the way people talk. So it's interesting that Republicans are doing something they don't normally do, right? Which is not use the common tongue, right? Not use just common English to sort of do on their campaigns like they're doing with crime. But what they've done is they've taught people the word inflation, right? Yeah. Most people who would have never used that word ever in their lives are using it now because they've been taught it, including on TV, including in newspapers. They've been taught this word, and they sort of wrap this word around whatever it is that they really want to vote.
Here's the question that I have on that. These two men are both elderly. Donald Trump is an elderly man who, for whatever reason, was given 9 seconds to take a iconic photo op during an active shooter situation. Weird situation. We'll figure that out one day. But his survival of that and bouncing right back and going right to his convention is being conveyed in the media world as a sign of strength. This current president of the United States is 81 years old and has COVID. Should he be fine in a couple of days? Doesn't that convey exactly the same thing? That he's strong enough, older than Trump, to have gotten something that used to really be fatal to people his age. So if he does fine out of it and comes back and is able to do rallies, isn't that exactly the same?
It should.
I mean, it's not exactly the same. It's not the same incident, but it's an elderly man coming through out of an illness.
It should.
It's like, this is the one for All Boys Aren't Blue, which is one of the books Moms for Liberty has.
Everyone should go and see the content in this book. That's such a good idea.
And so what happens is you can do keyword searches and find certain keywords.
Like rape.
You can find sure.
Or anal rape or dildo.
You can find all sorts of keywords.
Of words. But like,
wait, hold on, wait. Let me finish my question.
Okay,
then
great,
you can answer.
sure.
I'm going to give you time to answer, but I got to ask you first.
No, yeah, I got the question.
And so what you find is the keywords that you find, the N-word, anything, words like you just used, then you'll get out of context passages from the book. And then based on that, Moms for Liberty members are going to places like Broward County School Board meetings, reading out of context passages from these books, and then demanding that the school board remove them.
So what's
that is the way.
Yeah.
The question I'm asking is, what is the expertise that you have and other Moms for Liberty advocates have to decide that a book, an award-winning book like All Boys Aren't Blue, isn't appropriate for students to read? What is your expertise?
What a tragic story of a young man who's anally raped by his adult family member. So you have incest, pedophilia. Joy, you said you'd let me answer, so I'm going to answer
Please
for you.
do.
In what context is a strap-on dildo acceptable for public school? I mean, that's my question to you. Tell me what the context around the strap-on dildo or the rape of a minor child by a teacher.
Hold on a second.
No, we're talking about public school.
So Megyn Kelly, the host of the popular Megyn Kelly Show podcast on SiriusXM, predicted on Monday that MSNBC will eventually fire Joy Reid, who is a anchor of a nightly news show on the cable channel. Kelly said on her Monday show that Joy Reid wanted, quote unquote, a race riot, and that she actually does want some sort of rioting in the streets, some sort of a race revolt. The controversial comments that Reid made last week included a call to white progressive women not to invite Black women to protest marches against Trump. Apparently, there's a feeling of betrayal, given that a majority of white women voted for Trump. Reid also made another controversial comment on her MSNBC broadcast, saying that, in effect, Trump will deport, quote unquote, brown people, even if they're in the country legally. She predicted that Trump would initiate a process of denaturalization, which would essentially strip citizenship from Latinos and Hispanics, even those who are in the country legally. Kelly hit out at MSNBC. She accused the cable network of allowing Joy Reid to, quote unquote, spew this racist hate on their channel. And Kelly also added that it's a TikTok situation until her ass is fired.
According to Nielsen ratings, MSNBC had a big election night, bringing in 6 million viewers. But the days following the election, MSNBC's viewership tanked to less than 1 million. The network losing more than half of its audience compared to its average viewership in October leading up to the election. Friday also marked the network's lowest rated non-holiday night of the year.